Hi, good afternoon, good morning, or good day, whatever time of day that you hear this video and this show. This is the Dave Emmons Show. Glad to be with you again. And as you know, that I usually have one or two shows a week, and I don't want to crowd the shows in there so you can't keep up with them. I was just talking to my guest, Dr. Lani, about that, and actually, we're being syndicated also. I needed to get that in there with WODY Radio. That's in Maryland. And that is my buddy Eddie Carson's there. And that's Odyssey Radio.live. And he will be doing the audio portion, and I'll be sending out the video portion to about, I guess, 8 or 9 different platforms like Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, it's let's see, BitChute, Daily Motion, and also Instagram. So I try to get them all out there. The ones and I try not to get myself in trouble with a lot of these platforms. I think some people do that and they get kicked off. I don't know if Dr. Laney has that problem in Belgium, Brussels. No, he's in Brussels, Belgium. I said it backwards. Okay. But yeah, I don't know if he has that problem like we do, but we have to be careful what we say and do. But we're not going to be saying anything that's going to hurt anybody's ears today. Like I said, this is Dave Emmons Show, and my guest is Dr. Lani. He's from Brussels, Belgium. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about this guy. I mean, he's a research team manager, PI of MHD, Enhanced Entry System for Space. So he's a rocket scientist. Everybody talks about rocket scientists. Well, I got one on the show today, and he's from Brussels, and us Americans like the European continent. There, he's had ET contacts, and he will go through. He will start chronologically. He started in Italy with his contacts, and I'm sure he'll be talking about that. He's had Pleiadian, Arcturians, Sirians, Lyrans, Andromeders, and I guess energy healing and YT channels. He'll like to explain that. I'm not too much into that, but he'll explain it. Journey into Stargate and channeling. And he's a contactee, interdimensional beings. And he gets also, let me read this more. This is, I got more notes here. I have a lot of notes on people, Dr. Lanny, so don't be surprised. I try to get it all in for you. And he's a space scientist, but actually he's into the spiritual esoteric practices, energy healing, and contact with higher dimensional beings. And this should be interesting. You know, here we got a rocket scientist that's into all these things, and he's into the stargates and angelic families, and he receives healings, and he unlocks the soul memories, and he reads the Akashic records, and so this is something really interesting, and it's I think this is going to be a really good show because this is something that I don't normally or have my guests cover this kind of stuff, Dr. Lanny. So this is something great and new, actually. And I'm going to turn you over to Dr. Lanny from Brussels, Belgium. And Dr. Lanny, anything that I left off on the intro there, buddy?
Uh, no, you were pretty accurate. What I can say is that my specialty, like professionally speaking, is to develop models and software to simulate flows around space vehicles, so hypersonic flows in particular, and also plasmas like in the solar atmosphere or in space weather predictions. So I'm working, let's say, both in aerospace applications, but also in astrophysical applications.
Wow.
Um,
So you have studied you're a physicist in a way, right?
no, I studied aerospace engineering, but I'm
Okay.
actually working in a center for plasma astrophysics at the moment.
Okay. Well, that's I guess to a lot of us listeners and myself, I don't know much about all that science, but I know it exists. I know the names of it, but I'm proud of you doing that work and being able to do that work. With the intellect that you have, that's great. And but we're going to be hearing about the other type of intelligence that you know about and that it started off in Italy with you. Could you tell us when that happened and what happened?
Definitely. So, first of all, thanks for having me here. I would like to start with that. So, the first experience I had was actually in 1983. I was a 8-year-old boy. I was chatting with my parents on a balcony in a small village at the seaside in a place called Celle Ligure in the northwest of Italy. And it was about 9:30, 10 o'clock. It was already dark, and the street was completely desolated. There was nobody passing by. We were just chatting. We could even hear, the sound of our voice echoing. And at a certain moment, we notice this object that appears out of nowhere right in front of our balcony. So we were on the third floor of a building, and this object was basically in line with our balcony. So let's say a 45 feet more or less of distance from the ground, and it was like 30 feet in front of us. And at the beginning, for just a fraction of a second, we saw it, at least I saw it, as a metallic glassy object. So it was something in between metal and glass, hard to describe. And then as soon as we focus our attention on the object starts spinning at an incredible RPM while becoming luminous. And while spinning, it shrinks in size, and till the point in which it disappears. And just before disappearing, it sort of emitted a flash of light. And the whole thing lasted a few seconds. But what I remember are a few things. Like, for instance, I kept my eyes locked at the object during the whole sighting. I never turned my head left or right. I was just looking at it. And I remember then, when looking at the object, the background, the landscape in the background appeared almost as it was, almost as if you were looking through glass, like it was distorted. It was almost like if the object has some sort of field of some kind, and when you were looking through this field, what was behind was looking distorted. And then I also remember, I was impressed by, this fierce spinning. It was like from one moment it was completely still, and then it went spinning immediately to a super high RPM. And of course it was luminous. So after the sighting, I immediately turned to my mother. I said, "What was that?" And my parents are no scientists. And my mother said, "Well, maybe it was a falling star." But a falling star at,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
just in front of you. So, yeah, even if I was a child, I realized that I had witnessed something which was particular.
As a
And
scientist, could you explain it as being they were popping in and out of a wormhole, or they were popping in and out of a dimension and then going back?
okay, so the explanation that I could say now is maybe this object, while spinning, was generated some sort of portal and was able to basically, yeah, disappear through that. Because, I didn't see the object going in any specific direction. It was just, spinning, and everything was appearing locally. And then the other thing, of course, is this light that I was seeing was probably plasma that was generated during the spinning. Probably this object was able to ionize the air around, and what I was seeing was actually this the plasma that was generated around the object, almost like a plasma shielding induced by the fact that maybe, I don't know, on
Yeah.
the surface of the vehicle there were very strong currents that were ionizing the air.
How
But
big?
that's just,
How big was it, Dr. Lani?
it wasn't very big. I would say maybe maximum 5 feet, maybe of diameter, probably smaller.
Really? Maybe a small, maybe a drone or something like we have. But no, the observation that you just made, I haven't heard that before. I've
I
been
know.
I've been I've been with the UFO business for a long time, but you actually saw something that was spinning and creating energy in order to maybe produce its own little wormhole and travel through a dimension and go on its own. And you witnessed something powering up. I've seen them drop down and then they'd flash a few times and zoom, they're gone. I've seen them do that, but I've never seen them spin or power up and then just they're gone. So apparently that's what they do when people see them come. They see an orb, and all of a sudden it just flashes and it's gone. That's what they're doing. They're just like you explained it. And being a scientist, You explained it quite well.
Yeah, I mean, actually, what I can say is that this single event motivated me later on to become aerospace engineer. Because when I had to decide what to do in life, I was like, I would really like to understand one day what I witnessed, you know, that day. So, and yeah, so originally I wanted to do astrophysics. Then very last minute I decided to do engineering because there were more chances to find a job, you know, this uh, parents talking and worries. But I just want to say something more. So this was in August, around 15 August 1983, right? I don't know the exact date, but more or less it was around that time. And I actually forgot about this event for maybe 4 or 5 years. I mean, at that age, 8 years old, I was actually more interested into horror movies than
Yes.
into aliens, I have to say. And definitely not into Star Wars. I actually fell asleep every time that I tried to watch Star Wars, just to make an example. But okay, so what happened is that about 4 or 5 years later, so I was 12, 13 years old, I was hosted by an uncle from the side of my mother. And he was also a lot into paranormal phenomena. He had actually an encyclopedia, which was called Dimension X. And every time I was going to his place, I was always taking one of the books and read about, you know, about reincarnation, self-combustion, UFOs, you know, werewolves, whatever.
Yeah.
No? And that day, he comes and he takes a book and actually open it up, and he had a drawing inside the book that he made, and he told us, well, you know, in 1983 I was there in the same place, in the same apartment, you know, same balcony. So it was the same summer, but it was like 2 or 3 weeks later, once we had already left.
Yeah.
and uh, and he was there alone, and suddenly he looks up and he see an object arriving, and what he described, and he made the drawing immediately after the sighting, the one that I was seeing. And so basically he saw this object that was like a dome with a disc with a lot of lights. And what caught his attention, first of all, is to see this object arriving very, very slowly. It was rotating very, very slowly. It was high in the sky, probably 500, 450, 500 feet. And he sees these lights, these lights, these beams of light. And so he calls the wife and said, okay, come to the balcony, look up, do you see it? And the wife confirmed. So they basically stayed there, he says, for like 30, 45 seconds, looking at the object. So they had all the time to look at the object in details, sort of. And then the object increased the RPM, started rotating super fast, became like a ball of red light, and it sped up like a bullet, and it disappeared.
Wow.
So very, very different sighting than the one that I had, but in the same exact place.
Right. And also the same exact
Same
science
moment.
involved in it.
Yeah, there was a rotation involved in both cases, but what I saw was different. What I can also say is that, for my understanding, but I may be wrong, some of these objects have the ability to appear different from what they actually are, maybe even to partially materialize, because we are talking about something which probably is multidimensional. I mean, we only have a 3D concept, but these objects may be existing in multiple dimensions, so we only see a fraction of it. It could be that the two objects were related. It could be that the two objects were unrelated. Who knows? I will probably never know.
No.
But another thing that I want to say is that my uncle, during the night, so he was very like disturbed by what he had seen. So he wakes up in the middle of the night, and while opening his eyes, he has the impression to see the face of a being with long hair, but made of light, which was basically hanging on the wall in front of his bed. And it was just a fraction of a second. Like, he opens his eyes, he sees his face, and then he has like a reaction. Maybe I'm still dreaming, right? But then basically in the morning he's talking to the wife, and the wife is describing a dream in which she said, I saw something that looked like Jesus Christ made of fire that was entering our bedroom. So she in her dream and he while waking up had a similar kind of vision, hallucination, call it what you want. So definitely connected to what they have seen.
Was that you think that I know you talk about the knowing the different ET species like Palladians, the tall whites. Was this you think it was a tall white with blonde hair?
I would tend to believe they were more like Pleiadians, but that's my because I know later on I got the information that what I saw were Pleiadians, so I assume that the same that they contacted him, but I don't know about
Mhm.
that.
So so this continues throughout your life apparently because you're so into it now actually and actually being a scientist and everything else you're into it actually more because I think you've learned more scientifically and now you can probably piece some of this stuff together. But moving on, what was your next great adventure?
Yeah, so I had to wait for long actually. Nothing really happened till I would say my last year of university. So I was still in Italy, in Turin, my hometown, and it was 1999, 2000. I don't exactly remember in which period, but in the matter of few weeks, I had three times the same experience. And the experience was like that. So basically, I was going to sleep, and just maybe a few hours after, I was waking up completely paralyzed, feeling a very intense vibration traversing my full body. And at the same time, I was also hearing a very high pitched sound in both my ears, uh, increasing in frequency by the second. So imagine to go to a dentist who is using the drill. The drill, I mean, at a certain moment reaches a speed, the maximum speed, right? And
Mhm.
it's already annoying. But imagine something like that that keeps on going and increasing in frequency and in speed. That was the kind of sound that I was hearing in both my ears, and it was really really intense. So my first reaction is like I'm in the middle of an earthquake, but then I hear this noise, and then I have this vibration through I mean inside my body, you know. And then I try to forcibly move a finger, but there was no way for me to move anything, and so I started praying, and the experience stopped immediately. And then I opened my eyes. I was like, what was that? You know? So I had the same experience a second time. And this second time, I reacted exactly in the same way, and the experience stopped when I started praying. But this time I went on internet. At the time there was Alta Vista or whatever, and I Google whatever I look for.
Yeah, same
I
thing.
look for yeah for something related to sleep paralysis, vibrations. So of course you find the neuroscientists, whatever, that they say, well, this is due to some temporary dysfunction of your brain or whatever, but it's perfectly normal. But then you find the ones who have a more esoteric experience, and so some were talking about abductions, but then they were mentioning seeing beings and stuff. And this is not my experience. I wasn't seeing anything. My eyes were forcibly closed, no. But some others are actually mentioning out of body experiences. Like they were saying, well, when you try to induce an out of body experience, there is this phase of transition in which you actually feel this vibration and you feel this kind of ringing in your ear. Not really ringing, but it was something different. But let's say
Can I
to
tell you, Dr. Lani, that I I can back you up on everything you just said because that has happened to me. I'll be real quick about it, but it happened to me where I felt a crackling, buzzing sound and it hit me and paralyzed me. I was able to see. I had my eyes open, had one hand be able to move one, a few fingers, but I was numb, just like you were. But I
Mhm.
was able to see. But you mentioned this buzzing in your body and this like a frequency, and your ears ringing. Bingo, you're right on. You've been abducted. That's an abduction right there.
Yeah.
Continue. I just wanted to back you up on that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. But actually, I figured out about the abduction, but much later. So, so going back to this period, I had again the same experience about 6 years later when I was already in Belgium, and Oh, wait, sorry. So I was at the second experience. The third experience, after having read all this online, some people were saying, well, you can try to control the experience. Don't get into panic. Just, you try to relax and you try to maybe have a conscious out of body while you are in that state, right? So I said, okay, let's try. So if it ever happens again. And it actually happened. And this time I didn't panic. And I tried to control it, but actually the experience just like
Yeah.
stop
Yeah.
gently, very gently.
And then I had the same experience you did. I said, "Oh God, help me," and it stopped. Yeah.
It's kind of scary. It's like when you're not supposed to, wake up in that state, right? So
Yeah.
and yeah, and so basically it happened again in Belgium. I don't remember if two or three times in around 2005, 2006. So every time I was trying to control the experience, but every time, in some way, I was waking up. And once I was actually woken up by my girlfriend that felt my body shaking, and she touched me, and I said, "Oh wow!" I was also hearing sounds. It was not just the buzzing of the body. Um, and so this was 2006. So nothing happened for many years. We have to go to 2017 for having again some experience.
It's not unusual, Dr. Lani, that there's a space of 10 years before you have another event. But also you don't know if you've had another event. 50% of the people abducted don't realize they've been abducted. So you could have had some things happen to you, you're not sure, but everything you're talking about, it sounds real. This is interesting. Continue. Yeah.
Yeah, so in 2017, I had a very tough year because I got some, let's say, serious, very painful physical issue, and so yeah, so it was a period in which I was at home for like 11 months, and I was working from home. Couldn't even go to the office, and one day, one night actually, I was stargazing. I mean, I was looking at the sky from my house here. I live very close to downtown Brussels, and I can tell you with the light pollution, if you look at the sky, you don't see that much. Maybe you see a dozen of stars, 20 stars, something like that,
Mhm.
unless it's really a spectacular day, like, where there is a star shower or whatever. And so that night, I was looking at the sky, and I was like thinking, oh, how cool would it be if I could have another experience like when I was a child, now that maybe I can look with a critical eye. And so I was really like putting this wish out there. And after that, it was about 1 o'clock in the night. After that, I was at the second floor, on the second floor of this house. I went to the first floor in the bedroom. My ex-girlfriend was already sleeping. I mean, not sleeping. She was on the bed. So I lie on the bed, and she makes me notice that there is some strange sound. So basically, the sound, I could describe it as something like a metallic kind of squeaking,
Mhm.
almost like a chainsaw, but more high pitched. And to me, it reminded me of, when you look at some sci-fi movie in which there are robots that move, there is this robotic kind of sound when the robots move. It's very weird, but that's the only image that I had in that moment. And the girlfriend actually turn her face towards the wall while I stay with my eyes open looking at the ceiling. And I was like, what is this sound? And at a certain moment, I would say in the matter of a couple of minutes, I see a ray of green light, bright green light, entering from the top corner of the window. I have a window and I have a backyard.
Mhm.
And in the matter of few seconds, the whole room is enlightened in bright green light, almost like daylight, but green.
Oh.
And I was like, whoa. So I tell my girlfriend, well, let's go to check what's going on. And she said, no, no, let me sleep. And she even pulled up the blanket. No, I was like, I never figured out why. I mean, she wasn't interested at all in seeing what was happening. You see something so anomalous, but whatever.
Right.
I just jump out of the bed, I look at my phone, which was on the side of the window, and I had this quick moment in which I have to decide. I can try to switch on, look for the photo, or I can just look outside. And on top of that, my phone at the time, it was an old iPhone 4, also had some issue in switching on. So let's say I had to take a quick decision. So I just look outside, and I see basically two large discs of green light, green bright light. They were moving together, and they were just above my backyard and going above, let's say, flying over the roof of the neighbor. And I could estimate the size of each of them as a minimum to be 6 or 7 feet. And I can do it because I saw them passing over the roof of the neighbor. I know what is the size of the width of the facade, and so more or less I can estimate the size. So I immediately thought this is not drone because it's enormous, and this light, there is just one single light. And also I had the feeling, but I couldn't see because it was extremely dark. I could only see these two lights, but I had the feeling that the two objects were actually connected. But I didn't see any connection because it was really too dark. And on top of that, I also didn't have time to grab my glasses, so I missed the details. I was just seeing these huge green lights. And then I went upstairs because I couldn't see them anymore once they ran over the roof of the neighbor, but I couldn't see past the roof. So I mean, the interesting thing is that I had asked for a contact maybe 15 minutes before, and here we go.
Right. You ever get the feeling though that these things are following you and that they're checking up on you and they're actually tweaking you? When you buzz and vibrate, they're tweaking you, your DNA, and you probably know more about the scientific thing than I would on that. But the DNA, there's a frequency that they tap into, and they follow you and they keep up with you. And you asked for it. That means you have a lot of consciousness going on there, and then you can talk to them. Do you feel that way?
Well, now I can say yes because a lot of things change after that. But at the time, I think what triggered the experience was really a genuine. There were two things. First of all, I asked for a genuine connection, not so much for the mind. It was not like, I want to see because I want to have a proof or something. It was really like this sort of like, I would really love to connect to them, you know?
Yeah,
And
Dr. Lani, we're going to take a break now. We're going to take a pause. We're at the bottom of the first half of the show. We're going to come back and do another 30 minutes. You're listening to the Dave Emmons Show, and we got Dr. Lani. And yes, he is a rocket scientist. He's from Brussels, Belgium, and we'll be right back after this short pause. Okay, we're back. That's kind of strange, Dr. Lenny. I know that we're still on video, but we're doing this for radio purposes. WODY Radio in Maryland. Eddie Carson's my guy there, and it's OdysseyRadio.live. And this is the Dave Emmons Show. We got an exciting guest on today. He's saying some things I haven't heard before, and so this is what I'm looking for. Somebody, especially with his background and his scientific background, and he's an entry system, I guess, scientist that deals with space travel, and he's a PhD from Brussels, Belgium. You want to continue on your chronological order, Dr. Lani? Very interesting.
yeah, sure. So I had this experience with the green UFO, and then and so another reason why I think I got this connection, for me, it was some sort of encouragement from these beings because of the difficult moment that I was facing. As I told you, I was sick during that year, and that was their way to say, hold on. And actually, the proof of this was also that in the matter of a couple of weeks, I actually recovered completely after so many months. But then I flew to San Francisco, and then I had a relapse right after. But so I don't know. I would never be able to verify. But I think this encounter helped me to recover, to be able to make it to the trip, which was really important for me. And then eventually I fell back in the same issue. But anyway, so I recovered after a while. So this event happened on in March 2017. In February 2018, so almost a year later, I'm in a similar position. This time I'm alone at home. I had broken up with my girlfriend in the meantime. And that day I was looking at the sky, which is something that I normally don't do. I don't want to pass like somebody who is always with the nose up. Actually, I don't do it almost never. But also because there is not much to see in the city, right? But that day, again, I was looking at the sky, this time from another window, like on the first floor instead of the second. And I could see the Orion belt and I could see a few other stars, let's say maybe 20 stars or something. And again, I set the intention to connect to whoever was out there. And what happens is that in the matter of, I would say 1 minute or so, I start seeing light after light. And so in the matter of this little time, the whole sky become completely filled with lights everywhere. I'm talking about hundreds. And and I had this sort of overwhelming like sensation. It's like that I was witnessing something particular. And then I also saw a sort of purple object or maybe ball of fireball crossing the Orion belt from left to right, basically. And during the sighting, I also opened the window. I mean, in February here it's pretty cold, but
Yeah.
I wanted to be sure that I was awake, first of all. And I also wanted to be sure that there was no interference from the glass of the window. So like I was seeing all these lights, maybe it was a reflection. No, so I opened the window and I saw it was completely full of lights everywhere. And I stayed there for a while. And then I basically just closed the window and go back to sleep. And I was happy. I said, okay, I had some sort of contact, but yeah, I would have liked to have more. So the day after, I try again, but this time nothing happened. I stayed for like 30 minutes asking, please show yourself, show yourself. Nothing happened. So
So it's something that you ask. I mean, you can actually consciously ask these beings to or UFOs to show up, and they will come. And you're saying that this time they didn't come. Well, ETs are not predictable. I mean, from everybody that I've talked to, they'll come and they'll show you themselves when they're ready to. It's not when you want them. And it's always a surprise when you see them. It's all of a sudden there they are, and you don't. A lot of times they catch you without a camera, and they catch you not being able to record or even have a witness. They like dealing with people one on one, and if they abduct you in your bed and you're with your wife or girlfriend or something on the other side of you, what happens is that person is knocked out. They don't know anything, and that's what's happened to my wife. And while I was divorced, I had two wives that experienced that. So yeah, that happens a lot. I don't know if your girlfriend or your wife has experienced that too with your events. No.
not really. Actually, she was completely, how do you say? She absolutely didn't like me to talk about these things. And
Right.
once I was even reproached to bring up the subject about these green UFOs with her best friends. She said, I don't want people to think that I mean, you are into this kind of stuff. I mean, this is nonsense. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah. Right.
Anyway,
Yeah, we get that. I mean, every experiencer gets that. You got some people who say, "Yeah, I don't believe it at all." They think you're crazy. All I expect people to say is, "It's a possibility." I'm not saying that there's not life out there or not life down here that messes with this. That's fine. That's a neutral point of view. But if they call you crazy, that's just a little bit overboard.
well, maybe, yeah, but the thing is that I was always telling you, yeah, but you saw the light, you didn't come to the window to check. Otherwise, you would have seen the same thing that I saw.
Right.
So, but yeah. So anyway, so this was in February 2018. Funnily enough, a few weeks later, in March, I broke my left ankle at home during an accident, and I then was stuck at home for like 6 weeks.
Mm.
Actually, I had to have surgery, so I had crutches and everything. So
Yeah.
basically, I had much more time to research. I have to say, during this time, like let's say from my teens up to my 30s, I was always like researching about UFOs, aliens, crop circles, also about spirits and stuff like that. Not so much about the spiritual aspect like reincarnation or stuff, but I didn't exclude it, But I got to a point in which I somehow wanted to investigate a little more the connection between consciousness and the alien phenomena. And actually, the first let's say YouTuber or whatever source of information that I found connecting consciousness to ET was Stephen Greer. I started watching some of his stuff.
Hmm.
Not that I believe everything he says about all these, secret, whatever, not conspiracy, but things going on behind the scene. Maybe they are true, maybe they're not. But what triggered my attention was that he was, talking about meditation to connect to extraterrestrials and stuff like that. And then I bump when I was at home with a broken leg. I bump into the videos of two YouTubers. One was called Bridget Nielsen, who was talking about hybrid children and being abducted and having being an hybrid herself. And she was talking like as she was telling something normal, And I was impressed by the way I said, she cannot be lying. You cannot be lying with that kind of. I don't know. I mean, she really. I was trusting what she was saying. But then I bump into videos of another YouTuber called Elizabeth April, and she was actually trying to connect the dots about all these experiences. She was talking about reincarnation. She was talking about the star seeds. So alien or higher dimensional souls incarnated in human bodies and actually here on a mission. And then she was talking about her own abduction experiences. So she was bringing a lot of information, and I was really looking for somebody connecting the dots. And so what happened is, okay, at the time I was single, so I was meeting a lot of people, a lot of girls, and a lot of the ones that were put on my path were actually into spiritual practices, or even also interested in UFOs and stuff. And so one of the concepts that was put on the table in two of these meetings were the Akashic records. So what are these Akashic records? So some say Akashic records are the sort of cosmic version of internet that you can access not through a browser, but through some practices like meditation, for instance.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And or remote viewing also, because remote viewing allow you to see through dimension, through space, through time. Here is the same process. Basically, you are accessing memories of past lives or even possible future timelines. And so I met these two girls who were actually learning to access their own records. And in particular, the second one was a psychologist, actually, a person that actually worked in the United Nations, so like not a fool, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she was, let's say, she had just come out of a meditation session online in which she had a very powerful experiences in accessing some of her past lives. And okay, so I went home the same day. I said, I have this book about Akashic records since months. I haven't opened it. Let's try to do an experiment. And so I read through the book three chapters or something, and then there was an exercise, a meditation exercise with some visualization. I do the exercise, and basically, okay, in this exercise, at a certain moment, you sort of visualize a temple that is supposed to be a representation of your soul, of the memory of your soul, okay? And then there is somebody opening the door for you. And this person, let's say, is supposed to be a spirit guide. So my first question, and then you have to ask questions. The most precise, the more precise, the better. So my first question was, okay, what is the name of the spirit guide that I'm visualizing, and where am I coming from? So in my empty mind, imagine I was with all the lights were out. I was pretty much in a meditative state, And in my empty mind, I see two words. The first one is Andronia, and the second one is Sagittarius. And then I said, okay, I switch on the lights, I go on Google, I put Andronia Sagittarius. What comes out? Well, the first link that I found, and I have screenshots of this, was basically was basically something like meet your spirit guide. So there was in what Google was telling me as a result of the search, there was a connection to what I was asking. And that was interesting. Then I continue meditating, and I ask something more precise. I said, okay, I would like to know about my last life on Earth. What was my profession, my name, my surname, and the date of death? And again, I see first an image of war. I see two soldiers with a helmet that are helping somebody on the ground. And then I see Charles as a name. And then as a surname, I see the name basically spelled letter by letter, and it was Dempsey, so Dempsey. And then for the date of death, I got 1941. So again, I switch on the light, go on Google, and I figure out that there is a colonel of the US Army called Charles Adam Dempsey, who died in 1941. So profession matches, name and surname matches, and also the date of death. And is not an historical person that you would find in history books. He didn't get that famous. You can only find it in Find Grave, this website in which they track the history of every single American during the last 300 years. So that gave me some sort of validation, that I was into something.
Dr. Lani, was this a real lucid dream that you was having, seeing all this Akashic record stuff, or
No,
how
I
did
was
you?
fully conscious. I just closed my mind. Actually, when I was asking about this past life, I was actually brushing my teeth in the darkness. But I was like, my mind was empty. I mean, I can clear my mind very easily. Like even before being let's say very deep into meditation, if I close my eyes, I can stay in that state forever. I don't have thoughts polluting, so it's easy for information to come.
Wow, that's a talent to learn. There's a lot of people like to do that. Would like to be able to go to the Akashic records and also go into a consciousness to where you can visualize your past, your future, but and you validated that it's not a dream. You're not calling it a dream. You're actually calling it a very conscious,
Absolutely.
communication, right?
Yeah, I very, very conscious experience. But the thing is that let's say, I'm very curious by nature, and I want to experiment. So even if I got some results, I didn't continue. At that time, I said, okay, I got some outcome. Let's move on to something different, right? So actually, this was totally unwanted. I wasn't seeking any kind of experience of this kind, but few months later, I got some sort of ghost at home. And the thing was pretty undeniable. So what happened is that night, I think it was 17th November 2018, or 16 or 17. So basically, I decided to do a laundry. And I go to a bathroom which I have downstairs, and I have a heating rack where I always hang a towel. So I took the towel, I put it in the laundry, I went upstairs, replaced the towel. Then few hours later, I decided to go washing my hands in the bathroom. So I open the door, I'm about to let the water run, and then suddenly I noticed that there was no towel. And then I was like, how is it possible? I remember to have replaced it. And then my analytical mind tells me, okay, but probably you took the new towel, but you put the new one and the old one in the laundry by mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, okay, whatever. So I get off the bathroom, and I look at, I have a last look at the full, heating rack. There was nothing on it. And I go upstairs, take another towel. And while upstairs, again, my analytical mind is like, I know what happened. I was looking at the eating rack, but I should have looked at the floor. Probably the new towel fell on the floor. And I was like almost excited because I had found the explanation, right? And so I ran downstairs, and actually the door is still open and the towel is back in its place.
Oh wow. There's nobody else that lives in that area or uses that bathroom.
I'm alone at home, and the door is locked from the inside. Nobody else has the key of the house, so
Well, you know, paranormal activity follows a lot of UFO and ET abductions and also visits. I have it to this day. You know, 2 years ago, I've got pictures and videos that I just sent to ERC. That's a extraterrestrial research center. You may want to talk to them too, and it's
wow.
worldwide. But I have that today. Like my channel changes automatically at 7:30 in the morning, and the technicians, several of them, can't figure it out. And
Oh,
and if my wife handles the remote and she puts it on her nightstand, the channel will change to a different channel. So the last one to handle that remote, it goes to the channel that you're usually used to. We listen to sleepy time music, and then it goes from 947, channel 947, and then it goes down to 48, and that's a news channel. And it happened this morning. You know, it's 7:30 right on the dot, and I said something is, and the spectrum people, the people in charge of the cable maintenance, they can't figure it out. So
oh,
there's paranormal stuff that happens all the time, Dr. Lani, and you're talking about it there. They're keeping track of you. They're invisible. You know, ETs are invisible.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, once you cross dimensions, you find a bit of everything on the other side,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. And you got so many things going. I mean, you got so many other talents that you talk about. You got them listed, and we'll probably get into those. But what happened after the towel event? I mean, I know you're going in chronological order, and that's how I do it too. But that's a good way of doing it because you don't miss anything. We go chronological. What happened after the towel incident? Any more paranormal events?
Wait, just one thing about this ghost.
No.
The experience didn't finish there because the day after I wake up, and one of the, let's say, rolling shutters of one of my windows on the ground floor was not working anymore. So the electrical engine was completely exhausted, and I actually had to replace it later on. But I never had a problem. I had the problem just the night in which, I mean, the morning after this encounter. And then in the same day, at a certain moment, I was sitting on the sofa watching a football match. The door of the same bathroom opens very, very slowly, and I hear somebody howling, like "Whoa," very, very loud for like maybe half a minute. And then when the door stops, the other door that gives access to the room opens inward, super fast, like in the movies.
Yeah.
And yeah, so anyway, so after this, what happened is I decided to have a session one to one with this Elizabeth April, the YouTuber that was connecting all the dots. And so she does this kind of stuff, Akashic record reading. She tells you who you were before and stuff. And so I actually had to go for a conference in San Diego, and I decided to combine a little trip from San Diego to LA just to meet her face to face. And this experience was pretty extraordinary. She gave me some information. She saw past lives in some races that she called Lyran. So Lyran are like feline humanoids.
Right.
Then saw me as a Pleiadian several times, and also as a mantis being. And then she told me, actually, I see a mantis being next to you right now. Is one of your spirit guides, and is actually, it tells me his name is Gala, Gala, and has been looking after you from since when you were a child. Is your teacher from the other side.
Mhm.
Now, I want to tell you one little detail. So I recorded the session. It was on audio. No, it's the whole session was 60 minutes, and exactly at 30 minutes 00 seconds in the audio, you can hear that we are discussing the fact that there is this hummingbird coming into our space, and he flew straight at my face, but turned right in front of my nose like this, and then he went straight. He flew against her. She had to move out of the way, not to be hit full speed by the bird, And then it turned again, and then he ended up staying in the middle, in between us, just like a little helicopter assisting to our conversation, just in, in front of our faces.
Mm-hmm.
And and then, yeah, we acknowledge the fact that it was a strange behavior for a hummingbird, and we continue the session. Later on, when I'm going back from from LA to San Diego, I go on Google and I say, okay, she told me a lot of crazy stuff. What about this Gala-mantis being? So I put Gala-mantis being on Google. And the first link that I found was connecting praying mantises with um, hummingbirds.
Really?
So synchronicity, right?
Yes.
What's the chance?
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, I remove Gala. Let's see if I just look at Mantis being, if I find the same link. I didn't find the same link. So Gala, Mantis being in this exact order was triggering this kind of finding. And so that was super interesting. And then what happened is a month late, no, sorry, the day after, I flew from San Diego to San Francisco. During the night, I was sort of sleepless around 5 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, okay, Gala, if you are around me, give me a sign, right? And strangely enough, I fell asleep immediately on one side. And then I woke up feeling like somebody grabbing me from the waist and shaking me up. Like imagine your mother coming and say, "Ah, you're late for
Yeah.
going to school," or something like that. So I woke up screaming, and I was like, "Oh, maybe there is a earthquake or something." But then I was like, "Oh, nothing is vibrating," and somebody touched me, you know. So I was like, "Okay." I had asked to have a contact with this mantis being. Maybe he answered, you know. Yeah, and then it kept on going because a month later I had like a skin infection in my leg, and that day I decided to go to the doctor. But before doing that, I said, "Oh, what about putting Galamantis being on Google to see if he has an advice for me?" And the first
Hey,
link that the first link that I found that day was connecting praying mantis with parasites. And guess what? The doctor actually told me that I had some bacterial infection, and she gave me antibiotics. And then again, if I wasn't putting Gala as a first word, I was not getting this link. The day after, I tried to validate, and I said, okay, let me try again Galamantis bean. And this time I didn't find any link to parasites. So there was no way for me to find the link between mantis being and parasites.
right. Yeah, there's
And
dragonflies too involved in a lot of the stuff. Hummingbirds and dragonflies. Now, I want to go back to this lady you met in I guess in L.A. You said, did she claim to be a hybrid? I thought you might have said that. Uh,
mm, I mean, the first one, no, the Bridget Nielsen, yes.
yeah,
But the one that I'm talking about is Elizabeth April. And I mean, yeah, in a way, we are all hybrids because
yeah, we are.
as a human, we are a mix of different genetics. So I don't remember if she ever said that she really feels she's a hybrid. I don't think so. It's more like the other one, Bridget Nielsen.
Yeah. You ever heard? I know. Have you ever heard the word? See if I say it right. I just studied it. I'm writing a third book on angels and watchers, and I've been studying this about angels and things. And you mentioned spiritual guides. Uh, there's a word that's called chartria. It's the chartria or chartrian, and it's actually we have double DNA in us. You, as a scientist, you might know something. They say 80% of our DNA is junk DNA, but they're saying that there's a double DNA in us, and that means that there's a double entity or somebody that we're carrying around with us. Do you believe in that theory?
Yeah, I believe that yeah, it's more than 90% of our DNA is actually not coded. The scientists don't know what it is.
Right.
There you have all the history of your soul, you have all your psychic abilities, and actually I do, as we were saying, we will tell later, I do meditation in which I can sort of act on this DNA and unlock part of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that'd be interesting. That'll be episode 2 we're going to do pretty soon, but that will be releasing that a little later after this episode 1. Uh,
Yep.
Yeah, is there? We got about a minute or so in episode one.
I
Is there
would like
something else you want to say?
Yeah, I would like to show something if possible. I want to
Sure.
show a picture because it's relevant to the discussion.
Okay.
So you see my screen.
Yes, I do. I see your icons.
So we are talking about the mantis being, right?
Right.
So this is actually the lady that I met,
Okay.
Elizabeth April.
Uh-huh.
And what I want to show is this picture. So
Right. Yeah.
3 months after my session with Elizabeth, I was flying back home to Italy, and I was the only one on my row seats on the airplane. I was looking, and I was on the wing. I look outside and I see this scratch on the wing, which is pretty big. And being an aerospace engineer, I always look
Yeah.
outside, and
You're probably worried.
yeah, I was like, turbulence and stuff. And then I took a picture, and then later on, I was like looking at this picture. I was like, but this to me looks like a mantis. And then actually, I remember to have seen in a YouTube video in which they were talking about people
Yep.
contacting
we're
mantis big.
we're running out of time, Dr. Lani. So we're gonna take it. We're gonna end this episode, and we'll be back to do this another one, but we're gonna release it later. You're listening to Dave Emmons Show, and we're syndicated through WODY Radio, and that's Odyssey Radio Live out of Maryland. And you're listening to the Dr. Lani, a scientist, a space scientist, actually. And we'll have another episode of him, and watch for that this next few days. All right. Good night for now on this segment.